Hello, everyone. Welcome to Startup on the Blocks. Hello, how are you, Crystal?
I'm wonderful. How are you, Lloyd?
Yeah, fantastic. Glad to have you here. Give me a minute to kind of share my screen here. I want to let the folks in the audience know a little bit about Startup on the Blocks, all of our new folks, and I guess you can take part in this as well. Guess who's going to be our guest tonight? Crystal Berger. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Yes, it's Burger. Yes.
Yeah, so Crystal, we have some sponsors, so I wanted to kind of acknowledge them. Innisfree Hotel, they sponsor our first two pitch competitions, and we work closely with the Gulf Coast Minority Chamber and Pensacola Chamber to kind of help with this Startup on the Blocks program. Bantucola is our streaming partner, and they have also have a Black business directory, so we can kind of help shine, the black businesses in the area as well. We partner with the Small Business Development Center locally to kind of, help get mentoring for our portfolio companies, our founders, and that works out pretty well. And our last pitch competition we had last month was sponsored by the First Bank, so we're excited to have them as a partner in helping us out on this journey of growing new founders. And our title sponsors, Gulf Power, they really been supporting what we're doing with Startup on the Blocks, and also as they also are a big supporter of a nonprofit in general. So we're excited to have them here supporting us. To the next. Yes, so we've been on the grind for a while, Crystal. This is our 69th event since August of 2020.
Wow.
Well, yeah, so we've been rocking and rolling each week. We did three pitch competitions, and we normally average about 2 grand or so per pitch competition, but we're hoping to get some sponsors to get that on up to like 5, 10, 15, 20 grand.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, and so we enjoy supporting founders, uh, uh, with what we're doing here. Okay, so next week we have Mike Ellicott, and I think he's in the audience tonight, and he's all excited about helping veterans, and sponsoring veterans on their entrepreneurial journey. So we're looking forward to having him on, and he's also an entrepreneur ecos operating system implementer, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about that as well. And Amarat Bella, she's a founder of a patented technology for teaching math. So we're looking forward to hearing about her as well. So we uh, tell founders, in order to kind of access some opportunities out in the startup ecosystem, you can follow our Startup on the Blocks playbook. And so that will kind of set you on the path to learning how to be a founder. And so this is kind of the playbook we have it in all like emails. And so it's actually a proven approach for actually taking advantage of resources in the ecosystem. So if you hadn't taken a look at that yet, please go ahead and take a look at it. I won't go into too much detail about it here, though. Yes, and we follow the Lean Stack or the Lean Startup methodology, and we're, as you can see, the journey of a founder is it takes quite some time, and we're going to launch a program this spring that takes founders through this program, and the business model design. It's is to help you learn how to pitch your idea clearly and concisely. And so we're going to open up that to as many founders as we can. And then when it's time for the business model validation, that's more of a paid thing, but we're going to get sponsors to help our founders, get that training as well. So we're very excited to be working with Ash Murray on this training. We had him on a few months ago, and so that's kind of startup Bible around here, with that lean stack and lean startup methodology. Yep, and so Krista, we also have some mentors, and so they help us with our founders. And so we have some folks with banking expertise, accounting expertise, and Bob Foster, that guy in the suspenders, he's kind of like the Mr. Network guy. He I'm not sure how many LinkedIn connections he have now, but when I met him, he had 6,000, and I think last year he was well over 16,000. So so yeah, but we got a lot of experts, and we got some accounting people, Patrick and Rodney. And yeah, Rodney Scott is accounting. Rodney Jackson is a banker as well. He's working with the uh, Student Community Institute. Versa Vance, he's actually on our team with Startup on the Blocks. He's an entrepreneurship coordinator. He's a highly nationally awarded founder. His company, Alpha Data Corporation, at one time it was one of the top five companies for small business from SBA. So
Mhm.
yeah, small on the small business thing. So he's a seasoned entrepreneur. So we actually got all this help for founders. They just need to kind of stay involved and take advantage of some of these resources that we have. So, Crystal, we're so glad to have you here. I'll start off, but just letting let you take a few minutes to kind of introduce yourself.
Yes, well, one, thank you so much, Lloyd, for having me. I'm excited to be here amongst an amazing group of people who are visionaries. And so, just a little bit about me. I kind of say it's like hard to start, where to start, but I
Yeah.
tell everyone I'm a journalist turned innovator. So I worked in network news for over a decade at Fox News Channel in New York. And during that time in the newsroom, I worked as a senior booking producer on one side, and I also hosted a national news feature for them that aired on
Okay.
Sirius XM and about 1,300 of our local stations as well. And so I had both sides of the experience as talent, but also as a producer. So it was a unique lens. I say that journalism was like my 15th career because I started out as a high school English teacher.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Nice to
yeah,
hear.
yes, yes. I was a high school English teacher in DC. That was my first job, and though I loved working with my students, I realized that I wanted to have a greater and grander impact in how we could help scale communities of color, specifically Black communities.
Yeah.
And so that's a little bit a really broad overview of
Okay.
me.
Well, we appreciate you going through that. So I'm curious. What led you to actually be interested in possibly being a teacher?
Well, so I grew up in West Baltimore, in Baltimore, Maryland, and I grew up in a single parent home. My parents divorced when I was about 8 years old,
Okay.
and so when my parents did divorce, we spent my brother and I. When I say we spent a
Yeah.
lot of time in recreation centers, and so like
Okay.
the rec center aides and directors, they were like my first teachers, my first mentors,
Hmm.
my first life lessons. I remember I used to take dance class with Miss Nadia, and I learned a lot of discipline from her. And
Okay.
so
Okay.
I had a lot of hands-on people who were there as a part of my growth and development. And so I would say, coming out of college, I did it because one, it was predictable, right? It was a
Yes.
predictable thing to do,
Hmm.
but also I felt like I had the energy at the time to really
Hmm.
add value to young people. And so that was initially how I got into it, just knowing what I came from and the role of mentors and recreators and those kinds of people in my life. And I had a unique experience in high school. I wasn't like the best. I wasn't like the best student. Like I'd had a lot of growing pains. I was very rebellious. And
Hmm.
so I remember having a teacher once who said something to me when I was getting my signatures to graduate, and she
Yes.
said to me, she said, "You're graduating." And I remember the thought in my mind was like, what? And it made me think like, well, how am I showing up, as a student, right? As a young woman, for her to
Hmm.
even be surprised that I was going to graduate, you know?
Wow. Okay.
And so I remember that impact on me, and I wanted to be the opposite to someone else. You know, like I wanted to be the person that saw the light in them, even if they were in
Hmm.
a dark space. And
Gotcha.
so that was part of the reason why I did initially go into education, and I wanted to work high school level because of
Okay.
those kinds of experiences. Yeah.
Yeah. So what did you study in college?
So I was an English major with
Okay.
a double minor in education and communications.
Wow.
Yeah. So, wait a minute. Let me rewind. When I
Okay.
first went to college, so I went to Dunbar High School in Baltimore, historically
Okay.
black high school,
Hmm.
and we had a partnership with John Hopkins Hospital. So
Okay.
initially. So we would go to school half the day our senior year, and then we would go and intern at John Hopkins. So when I
Gotcha.
went into college, I was a biology major.
Gotcha. Wow. Wow. Wow.
Yes, I was a biology major. I thought I was going to do medical research. And
Hmm.
I quickly learned in my first set of lab classes in college that that was not for me.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I changed my major my sophomore year, and thanks to a my sophomore year English professor, Marjorie Peoples McDonald, she
Wow.
said to me, she said, "Crystal, you're an amazing writer. You know, I don't know what you're thinking about doing, but why don't you major in English?"
Hmm.
And at that point, I was like really struggling in my biology classes, and I didn't really know what to do with the English
Yes.
degree, you know?
Hmm.
And but I loved it. I've always loved writing. I wrote my first book when I was in the fifth grade, and so I
Wow.
quickly took her advice and joined the school newspaper and just decided to pursue English as a major.
Fantastic.
Hmm.
Yes, I guess some folks might be curious how we met. So it was through a mutual friend, right? Right.
Yes, yes, through Bridget Jones. Bridget has been a gift. You know, she has had her own tech entrepreneur's journey, and as a black woman. And so I met her through a dear friend of mine who actually was at USA Today.
Okay.
She ran their virtual reality experiences there. She was a project manager, and she actually won a Pulitzer,
Wow.
right? So she's like yeah, like she has a Pulitzer, right? And so she's very connected in the tech community, and she introduced me to Bridget because I was looking to figure out how to do my financial models and do the business dev side of my
Oh,
business.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, and that's how I
Okay.
met Bridget. And Bridget just came in and just like, this is what you need to do because I've lived it, and that has been a gift. And so you and I met through Bridget.
Yes, that's exactly
Mhm.
right. And so, yeah, that's really exciting. And I kind of wanted to the audience to know, like, and I met Bridget, through the Startup on the Blocks thing, and asked her
Mhm.
to come on to be a guest and tell us a little bit about her journey. And so we've been collaborating, ever since. And so, but yeah, it's just great, to be out doing stuff and meeting people and connecting.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
and
And I
that's
think that's great about what you do. It's like I always tell people your network determines your net worth, right? And
mhm.
so, this journey has so many different verticals and layers to it. You can't do it alone, right? And if you're doing it alone, then that means something's wrong. That means your vision is not big enough because you don't need other people, right?
All
And
right.
so, yes, for sure, the networking that you're offering through your platform and through this community is critical. And I hope that people are really taking advantage of it because your network definitely is what will help to propel you and even sustain you, on
Yes.
this journey. Hmm.
Yeah, I was saying so you connect with people, but then you kind of have to build those relationships, and that's when that networking really pays off. Yeah,
Hmm.
and it takes time to build those relationships as well.
For sure. And it has to be mutual, right? Like I
Yeah.
think a lot of times people are trained or we live in a society where it's a what about me and what do I get out of this instead of going into the situation and saying, how can I add value? And I think that that is a key place that all founders should be is like, how can I be of service? What can I add? Because in being of service to someone else, you're going to be refined, you're going to learn things, and you're going to build your network as well.
Fantastic. That's exactly right. Our guest next week, I met him at a networking event last week, and he says he wants to help veterans. So I said, yes, come on, let's see how we can help the veterans in our portfolio companies and those out in in the audience. And so it's just so many amazing things out there. And just for example, he said that he was looking for some veterans that he could sponsor to an upcoming conference. And,
Mm,
and so it's just so many wonderful opportunities out there for founders, but you can't, you have to kind of participate in these different networking events and get the exposure. I'm just truly excited, about, networking and meeting people and finding out opportunities. And yeah, it's just really, really fantastic. So what was your transition? What was the transition after teaching? Mhm.
do you want to hear that story, Lloyd?
Yeah, I just see, part of the thing too, Crystal, is
Mm,
founders, they take their life experience and things they learn, and they put
mhm.
them, they use that and leverage that to kind of, move forward with their idea. Or that's how they sometimes come up with their idea through their careers.
Absolutely. And I mean, and I get it. My journey is like when I tell people I'm probably the most non-traditional founder on the planet, that is the case, right?
Hmm.
So, as I mentioned, when I was teaching, I felt like I couldn't have enough impact. There were a lot of things happening in the school system, that really troubled me because I taught all Black and Brown students. I was a ninth grade English teacher. And one thing that really was compelling for me is when I tested my students on their reading levels,
Okay.
like about more than half of my students read between the third and the sixth grade.
And
And
they're
I
in high school.
and they were in my ninth grade English class, and the
Wow.
textbooks were written on the 10th grade level.
Wow.
And these were children that looked just like me, came from
Hmm.
communities just like I came from. And so I remember, more oftentimes than not, having conversations with my leadership because they wanted me to continue to pass my students along and not adequately teach them.
Hmm.
And so I found myself always being reprimanded for, not passing enough students, but I was like the favorite teacher that the students would love to come to. And so I realized in that moment, I said, I need to have impact. And I was still very young. I was 23 when I left education.
Hmm.
And I remember saying, what am I going to do next? Like, how can I have some impact? So I went to law school.
Okay.
I went to
Wow.
law
Okay.
school. Yeah, I went to law school in Houston,
Hmm.
Texas, Thurgood Marshall School of Law,
Fantastic.
HBCU. And so I went there and I quickly learned a lot about just the constructs of our country, contracts and torts and all those crazy things that you learn in your first year law school. But I was also there with people who had wanted to be attorneys forever. They
Okay.
came from generations of attorneys and just people who just really were committed to that. And I was still figuring it out.
Hmm.
And so, when I left Houston, I came back to Maryland and I was working at a real estate law firm. And I remember thinking to myself, like, is this where I'm going to have the most impact, right? Like, is this
Hmm.
where it's going to land? And to give you a piece of my story very early on, though, Lloyd, um, as early as 15, I used to watch this show that came on BET called Teen Summit,
Okay.
right?
That.
And
Mhm.
I knew that I wanted to do that, but I didn't know how to get into it. And
Oh,
so
wow. Okay.
fast forward, when I came back to Maryland, I was taking this business planning and development class, and this gentleman came in class named Dave Zake, and he had just started an online magazine called Scene Baltimore. And he said to me, Crystal, I need someone to go out and interview some of the Baltimore Ravens tonight. And
Okay.
I was like, okay, no problem. I'm young, single, so I go and my very first interview was with Ray Lewis.
Wow.
Yes,
Wow.
yes. And I mean, you can still find the interview did like 80,000 views on YouTube. But I was terrible. I knew nothing about being like a host or a a
Yeah.
broadcaster. But I remember feeling this energy and this thing that I hadn't felt in anything else that I had done. Right. And I knew that that's what I wanted to pursue. And so from there, all the other Ravens would reach out and say, hey, I'm hosting a charity event, could you come out and host it? And so it was like a trickle down effect. And one day a good friend of mine came and she said, Crystal, I don't know what you've been doing these last 8 years out of college, but this is it. Like, you're in your zone. And in that
Mhm.
moment, I found a broadcasting school, the Broadcasting Institute of Maryland, went there.
Okay.
So I was going, doing my business in the daytime. I was going to broadcasting school midday, and I was interning at the sports department at WJZ TV, the station where Oprah started.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was interning there at night. Like, so I was having 12 to 14-hour days. And so after that experience, I decided to just pursue major market media because I loved it. Like, I loved writing, I loved cutting tape, telling stories. And so that landed me in the news business.
Okay,
Hmm.
fantastic. So,
Hmm.
so how much time did you actually are you still doing that kind of stuff or
So, like, as a founder, right?
Mhm.
You could only be so much to people, right? I do
Yeah.
still host events. I do have a podcast called Counterculture, that
Okay.
I host. But one thing was, when I was in that newsroom for that decade, I was the only African American woman in my newsroom, and I
Yeah.
was consistently bringing the diversity into the newsroom. And I remember saying to myself, when I knew I was ready to leave that
Hmm.
space and be a founder, I said, well, who's going to be the person to bring diversity into this room when I'm no longer in this seat? And
Hmm.
that's what really sparked me to decide to create the technology.
Oh, fantastic. So yeah,
Mhm.
so you saw that problem, the lack of diversity in media, and so you're so what did you name your startup?
It's called EBO. EBO stands for
Eva.
Expert Bookings Online. But it also, Igbo is a Nigerian tribe as well, right?
Okay.
But
Okay.
I, you know, initially I didn't know it was going to be a thing. I
Hmm.
didn't understand what I was doing.
Hmm.
But I knew that, one, we were doing things in an inefficient way in the newsroom, meaning the process of getting guests on air was all manual, right? There was a lot
Okay.
of room for error. And then again, if I didn't show up for work that day, it was a huge challenge for them to actually book guests for the platform. So that inefficiency through the human error and the lack of people in the Rolodex, right, led to inequity, right? So,
Hmm.
people would just default to their Rolodex, and most newsrooms are, predominantly white males. And
Hmm.
so, when there was a time to book a guest, what will people do? They go to their network, their
Yes.
resources, their Rolodex. And so
Hmm.
I saw the inefficiencies, right, streamlining the processes, and then that would lend itself to a more inclusive newsroom.
Fantastic. So, but do you see something like that? Like you said, you do a podcast. Is it similar technology like that could actually also get guests for your podcast, or even like the startup on the block? Say,
Yes,
guests.
absolutely. Yes. From podcasts to even one use case, and this is so why it's so important for founders to network and have conversations and look to add value. I was in talks with Amazon, and
Okay.
just looking to see how I could possibly add value to them. And it came to me from their leadership that they were having a challenge of finding diverse perspectives for, like, their employee resource group meetings and their
Yeah.
internal content offerings. And I realized, wow, this is a whole use case that I'm not even looking at. I'm looking at it from the media side, but
Hmm.
there's a need for this in other spaces, like you just said, like podcasts, like conference bookings, and all of that kind of stuff. And so it has lent itself to be something way more bigger than I could have ever
Well,
imagined.
yeah. So don't worry about that. You're doing the right thing.
Mhm.
What typically your background is in media, so you leverage that low hanging fruit from where you're most knowledgeable at, and once you work out the bugs in your system, then you can actually use that. You can expand to all these other
Mhm.
areas, but it's that you focus first on what where you see the most opportunity at, that lowest
Mhm.
hanging fruit for you, And so I think that's one mistake a lot of founders make. They don't land at a specific thing and then expand out. Mm.
Absolutely. And I love what you said, the opportunity is like the low-hanging fruit, right? I guess it's like what you know. And that's one thing that I've realized is, like, I didn't want to force this journey of being a founder. Though I know it would come with challenges, but I didn't
Hmm.
want it to be forced, and I wanted it to feel like me solving a problem that I actually had, an experience that I lived, instead of trying to create something like amazing, even though what this is, I believe, is amazing, right? I wasn't looking to do that, right? I wasn't looking to be like a founder. I was just looking to solve the problems that I experienced and other people in my role experienced on a day to day. So it was that like that low hanging fruit for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, so that's and that's a typical founder journey. You recognize a problem in the industry you're in, or in the job you have, or you just notice even in your hobby, you notice something that can be done more automated, and you start working on solving that problem. And I always tell people, the minute you start working on it, you can call yourself a founder. And the minute you identify yourself as a founder, you can start taking advantage of the resources that are in the ecosystem. Uh,
Mm,
a lot of people think that sounds a little cheesy, but it's the honest to God truth.
mm-hmm,
Like with my startup, you know, I I I got the idea to start it, just accidentally, and but the minute I entered my first pitch competition, I started getting all this help that I didn't even know
mm,
was out there to do it. But if I hadn't entered
mm,
the pitch competition, I never would have got the mentoring and the help to prepare for it. So
mm,
yeah, so that it's real important. Once you start working on an idea, you go ahead and self-identify. And I guess
mm.
did you think you need to keep your ideas secret to yourself, or
Of course, of course,
how did you get over that?
and I think that that's a lot of self work, right? I think as a
Yeah.
founder, you go through this journey, and especially in your role, having patents and done the kind of work that you've done in artificial intelligence, and how many things have been stolen from Black people in
Yeah.
America,
Hmm.
and I think that that's one piece of it. Like I had a couple of dreams where people were stealing my idea
I
from me,
never heard that.
and I mean, and it was real. Like I could feel it, like it was tangible. And I think that that comes from a lot of the societal things that we face, that you have to work through, and it's a thing where that is self work, right? Like that is really saying what is going on in my mind to make
Hmm.
me feel like someone's going to steal something from me. So that was one thing. And then,
Hmm.
everybody wants to be first, right? Everybody wants to be the first person to do this thing, right?
Hmm.
But in being first, if you don't have capital to scale your idea initially, right, or to protect your idea, then you are a little more guarded. And so for me, yes, I absolutely had those fears. It took me a little while to get over it, but what I had to realize, Lloyd, was there's only one me. So even
Yes,
if someone stole my idea, they wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing because they haven't lived my experience.
that's exactly
And
right.
yeah, for sure. So once I really landed in that space and gained that kind of confidence, and I think it's also a thing of, people talk about imposter syndrome, and, I feel like sometimes that can be a buzzword, but in this space, I was like, I'm a journalist. I'm not a scientist or a technologist, right? I'm a journalist. And so
Yes,
I think
yes.
it was also overcoming these labels of only these kinds of people build and create products, and really understanding that nothing about my journey has been traditional. And so, of course, I would be a non-traditional founder. And so, it took a little self work, but I think just having mentors and people also encourage me as well, was a big piece of me being able to really own the label of being a founder.
Yeah, so once you got the idea that you wanted to do it, what are some of the things you did and what type of help have you received so far?
That's I love that question. So one thing that because I am I think I probably should have been an investigative journalist because I'm nosy, right? And
Hmm.
so, I'm like,
Yes.
I love to learn, I love to read. And so, one thing I did was I took classes at the General Assembly. So,
Okay.
yeah, yep. And so I really took advantage of a lot of their free courses and workshops. I would encourage any founder who doesn't have a budget and you're trying to figure out where you want to land, or if it's certain technology terminology or industry lingo that you want to learn, take some of those free classes with the General Assembly, because I was going to some like once, once every 2 weeks. I would go on the weekends. I took a coding class once and realized quickly that that wasn't something I was going to do.
Okay. Okay.
But that really helped me. Like I really enjoyed product management classes though.
Okay.
So I took a couple of product management classes through the General Assembly that helped me realize that I could bring my idea to life.
Fantastic.
And it gave me like a roadmap. So that was one of the first things that I did. I then I just did a lot of independent reading as well, and then I started to reach out to people within the industry who had built products, who had, scaled technologies, and just started to like interview them essentially, about their journey, how did they do it. I started to participate in conferences as well, like Black Women Talk Tech and all of
Hmm.
those kinds of conferences, just to get exposure.
Yes.
But also, I believe that there is a learning curve both on the building and developing side of things, but also on the personal journey side. And I think you
Yes. Yeah.
need people to share their experiences with you just so you can figure out which ways you want to go on your journey. Mm,
Yes, and that's why we put the playbook out there because you got to get in that founder mindset. You
mm,
got to learn the best practices, the lean startup methodology, and you just got to take advantage of the resources that are out there in the ecosystem.
mm.
I think when we first chatted, you mentioned so that you hadn't participated in any startup programs, and I was a little surprised about that. So did you not know about them, or what the deal?
So it was a few things. So some of them I was unaware of.
Hmm.
Um, a few of the instances I didn't feel confident in answering the questions,
Okay.
especially when it came, and this is something I really want to, just say to the founders out there, getting a grasp on your actual business model. Like
Yes.
what is the business model? Who are you selling to? How do you intend to scale it? What is your revenue going to look like? Who are your users and how are they going to pay you? All of those questions were very intimidating for me.
Mm-hmm.
And even though, I believe I'm an intelligent woman, and, but it's kind of like, I think the piece of having to make assumptions was something that when I got to those questions within the portals, I would just say, oh, I don't know the answer, so I'm not going to keep going or apply.
Hmm.
And so that was one piece. And then also time management. Time
Yes.
management was a big piece of me not applying to some things, just really being able to say, okay, Crystal, allocate this amount of hours in your day to applying to these different opportunities. But even when we spoke, you spoke of some opportunities that I was unaware of as well. And so I think that one thing was you have to really intentionally carve out time to find out where the opportunities are for you to
Hmm.
grow. But I have applied to a few um, different entities, like, and some of them I was too early for, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
And so I like to tell people as well, don't get discouraged. It doesn't mean that you don't have a great idea, but a lot of the bigger engines that are given bigger amounts of money, they want to see that you have some level of traction in the marketplace. And so once I did gain the confidence and had the actual documentation needed to apply, a lot of the times I got responses that I was too early,
Hmm.
for those particular opportunities.
Yeah, so I think when that chart I showed with the months and months before you get that product market fit, but what I wanted to kind of communicate here is that at that when you first get your idea of what you want to work on, and you self-identify as a founder. So in most cities, and it doesn't even matter if it's in your local city, there is nonprofits or organizations for each stage of your journey. And so
Mm-hmm.
at that idea stage, the first pitch competition I entered, I had never put together a briefing on the thing. I didn't know anything about marketing, and but by entering that competition, it they assigned a mentor, and the mentor basically helped me through the
Mm,
process. And then as and you just start learning more and more, and so it just everything starts building on itself. But I like what you said about these terms. You didn't know what the answer was, and you didn't know how to answer them. But that's why there's this entrepreneur training and learning these terms and what they mean.
mm-hmm.
And so the way I learned them was I got lucky. I got into an accelerator program for veterans, and it was something new they were kicking off in the area. But what I noticed was the outline for the for the 12 weeks was all based on the lean startup methodology. So I just I and you know, and so I said, wow, they're going to teach me, you know, all this
Mm,
stuff, you know, and most accelerator programs make sure you know that stuff,
mm-hmm.
because the classes and education. But the irony is, if you go to Google, there there is, you know, YouTube video after
Yep.
YouTube video on
Mm-hmm.
all this startup stuff and how to get through it. So there's no shortage. But my recommendation is participate in the program, because you actually are developing your reputation. You People are seeing you work on your
Yeah.
idea, and then they refer you to other programs,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Absolutely.
that's the program refer you to other programs. And that's exactly what happened in my journey. You know, you do one thing, and so then that person, you know, later on, it might be 2 months, 3 months, or a year later, they refer you to another program. I remember this one program I participated in, that was out of New Orleans, but they expanded it to Miami. And the guy I met during that program, he was referring me to stuff like 3 and 4 years afterwards. You know, so
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
And that's a beautiful piece of it too, is this going on the journey, right? Like I think that more a lot of times, especially depending on where you are in your life too, right? Personally, in certain seasons, like you feel like I should know this and that things should be definitive, right? And I have had to get on a journey as a founder of being a student again,
yes,
you know,
that's exactly right. Yeah.
and that has been a gift because once you do open yourself up to becoming a student again, it's like people are really saying the same thing, right? When you talk about term sheets, you hear
Mhm.
all this lingo, but it's really like stuff that you do every day. Well, what are the terms of your cell phone contract, right?
Mhm.
It's like that's a term sheet, right? And
Yeah.
so it's really being able to go on that journey of learning to in that process for sure.
Yeah, before you show some slides here, I wanted to. Um, so I noticed on the links, and I did post them in the chat, the stage chat, and but I don't actually see them here. But so, Lloyd Jr., if you can repost them again, so they could show up on the broadcast. But the what I saw was you self-identified with some expertise in the media. So that's some expertise you have, and then you also had this idea, this expertise in, you know, with this inclusion stuff, diversity and equity and innovation. So I thought that was a nice combination, equity and innovation. So how did you come up with your equity plus innovation?
Well, this is the thing, right? I believe that, innovation, Steve Jobs said it best, innovation is the thing that distinguishes the leaders from the followers. I believe that innovation is a thing that will lend itself to equity. Again, for me, Black people have always been innovators. We've been the most creative people on the planet,
Yes.
and we do this in such a way that we create things to break some level of barrier, right? I was
Hmm.
reading a story about when, some of the illegally enslaved Africans got off the plantation, and how we started selling watermelons, and like
Hmm.
we were the biggest sellers of watermelons and
Okay.
cultivators of watermelons, and how that's how we sustained, through this transition of enslavement to now being
Hmm.
free.
Yeah.
And I believe that when you can take what you have and create something that's sellable or scalable, right, that innovation then creates equity for you, right? It gives you something a foundation to build on. And so, one piece of being in the newsroom and as a journalist, more oftentimes than not, because of my role, and I have to say this because I think a lot of people kind of sometimes look at their diversity as a burden, right? I
Hmm.
always looked at my diversity as a benefit. And so,
Yeah.
because I was the only Black woman in my newsroom for that decade, I always was invited to different corporate events or
Yes.
different opportunities with outside the network. And I always looked at that as something that I could really maximize and create opportunities from it. And
Right.
so that part alone lent itself to me being a speaker at Business Insider, writing for publications like Black Enterprise, and, even hosting events at the United Nations. And so I realized that being able to create opportunities was breaking a barrier for me and other people like me that would ultimately lend itself to creating some level of equity. And so inclusion, when you have that inclusivity in a space, then you create opportunities to build equity. And so that's just kind of a long way to get
Fantastic.
to
Okay, yeah, I like that. So, yeah, so audience, if you got any questions, Crystal, you're going to go
yes.
ahead and share some stuff about your startup, and so I'll let you do that, and then audience, get your questions ready, because and we really appreciate you being on here tonight, Crystal.
Oh, absolutely. I'm excited to be here. Now I
Yes.
know we did a run through, but I'm
Oh,
a
no, take your time. No, no, yeah, to kind of get it up. Yeah, yeah, you're going to share your a window in that PDF you have.
all right, so share screen. Okay.
Yeah, so
Uh,
audience, get your
mhm.
questions ready for Crystal. She's got all this expertise, and and so just chime in.
Yes, please bring your questions. I'm excited to answer them and add value.
Mhm.
So, can you see my screen or no?
Not yet. So
Hmm.
you just make sure. Let me see if I can see where, because it's, let's see what the deal is. So yeah, so what you want to do is when you get to the point where you see the thing asking you to, if you want to do a entire screen, a window, a Chrome tab, make sure you're there, and then when you see click window, and then select your PDF.
All right. I should have it. Window. For some reason, my PDF is not on the screen. Um.
Okay.
Okay, let me go back.
But no problem. Well, like you can, you know it by heart, I'm sure.
Yes, I do. I absolutely do. Eh, um, well, it's not. I'm just gonna try to.
Okay, yeah. What? So what? Yeah, just tell us a little bit about your startup and what. Okay, let's see. That you're sharing your whole screen now, so you want to kind of I'll tab over to your PDF.
Sure. Okay, let me see.
You could.
View and full screen. Perfect. Can you see it?
It looks like you're still sharing your screen.
Hmm.
You look like you're sharing this broadcast. That's what it looks like. So
Hmm. I don't. For some reason, I don't know why it's not.
okay,
Um,
no problem. And then we can I'll put a link to the PDF stuff. And is that the same PDF you share with me?
it it is.
Okay,
Um,
so hold on a second. I'll share it then. I think I'll
okay,
down.
perfect.
Well, let me download it first.
Okay.
Hmm.
I don't know something with my view.
I'm I'm getting it ready right now, and you're gonna have to tell me when you um, want me to go to a different slide here.
Okay.
Yeah, and I didn't know why I didn't think of this stuff first. Now I got to find the screen. I got so many screens open. So let me find my screen here. It's computers, huh?
I don't know why. For some reason, every time I was trying to, but look, it's technology, But just a little background as you pull it up. Ebo, I can say, was something that, and I encourage non-technical founders to go on a journey, because you know what you know, and so yes. Making media bookings fast, efficient, and inclusive. One thing I realized working in the newsroom, whenever you had a breaking news scenario, not only did you need to be fast, but you need to find the right guests that had the right credentials, but also you wanted to be in a situation where this efficiency would lend itself to some level of inclusivity. And so our tagline is, we're breaking barriers to entry in media using emerging tech. And so yes, you can go to the next slide. And so people may be wondering, well, what is this all about? Why is there a need? So the pain that you experience when you're actually looking to book a subject matter expert on air is typically something that most people don't think about. So if you watch, CNBC or CNN and you're watching Don Lemon and you see them cut to the cybersecurity expert, there's a process, a manual process that happens to get that person on air, from calling to coordinating to scheduling to actually having to research the guests. And so those legacy processes, those old school, I say the 1989 way of doing things, was a significant pain point within the newsroom. And as the pandemic exploded and a lot of uncertainty was happening in the industry, many newsrooms, especially on the local markets, were cutting staff. And so that also presented another layer of pain, where when you let go of the human, more than likely that person takes their contacts and their Rolodexes with them. And so the staffing shortages created limited access to subject matter experts in general. But the other piece of this that ties into the social impact and the social mission of EBO is that lack of diverse decision makers and staff lent itself to a lack of inclusivity. Meaning, if 88% of your newsroom are white men above 50, typically their Rolodex is not diverse. That's just statistically, the data just speaks to that. And so people would default to who was in their Rolodex to get them on air. And so that's the essential pain that EBO addresses. And so we could go to the next one. So our solution, we've coupled action with automation, and we believe that EBO is going to be a disruptive product in media relations, because we said that, okay, we're going to take these actions, these processes, and we're going to automate them and create a solution. You can go to the next slide, that can be very user friendly. And so what is our value proposition? This was one of those terminologies, audience, that I was like, value proposition, what is that? It just means, what value do you add into this marketplace? And so essentially we deploy automation that essentially vets the subject matter experts, right? So we streamline the discovery process, the research process of finding and verifying subject matter experts. And then we offer the bookings, right? And so we automate the scheduling and the coordination on demand for platforms. But more importantly, we use algorithms and data to offer diverse perspectives 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, by connecting them through those algorithms. And so if you have a need, then we can use your previous searches or the types of content that you create on that platform to populate guests that will work for your platform. And so you can go to the next one. So how does it work? It's very simple. So users on both sides, and it's a two-sided platform. It's a B2B, which is a business to business platform, and it's also a B2C, a business to consumer platform. So whether you're a subject matter expert on the B2C side, or if you're a B2B, a podcaster or a newsroom or a local station, right? You go in and you create a profile based upon your wins or your interests and all the things about who you are and what it is that you do, your subject matter expertise, the things that you enjoy, your hobbies. And then when someone or a news story breaks, people can search you based upon key terms, details of the story, and any desired expert criteria. So someone like you, Lloyd, they would put in your name. I mean, they would put in, artificial intelligence. They would put in, has, 15, 20 years of experience in the industry. And then you would pop up if we're looking to do a story on how AI is going to change the way we buy groceries moving forward, right? And then you can actually book the guest on demand, right? So you can select the person that you want to go on air, and we do the rest. And so next slide. So a lot of people love to know, well, who's a part of the platform? I like to make the distinction that we're not a platform that houses experts, we deploy them. And so we want to make it easier for people to have experts 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so these are some of the amazing, diverse subject matter experts that are within the platform, amongst many other qualified subject matter experts. So, like Meredith Lilly, she's a political strategist, she's a presidential appointee, and she's run some of the biggest campaigns that the nation has ever had, actually. And so she's a Fox News contributor as well. And so she's within the platform. And it's Cantor Freedom now. He's a human rights activist who's also a Boston Celtic, right? And so you can find these kinds of amazing people within the platform. People like Bianca J. Jackson, she's an emerging technologist who won a Pulitzer for her work at USA Today. And so we really look to have a space and a space and a marketplace that actually uses automation to get these diverse perspectives on air anytime. And you can go to the next one. You'll see an array of subject matter experts that have been featured in publications like CNBC, Forbes. Nicole Valentine, she was a critical piece of the FedEx merger, the FedEx Kinko's merger. She led a team and a part of that transaction. And so we like to have a very diverse group of people within the platform. Asia Celestino, she's an anchor on Cheddar News, but she's also a TikTok girl, and she talks everything lifestyle. And so we want to really mobilize these voices and help create content that speaks to every American around the nation. And so in seeking that, we do it in a way that is the most efficient as possible. And we could go to the next, we can skip the next slide. So people might say, well, what qualifies you to do this work? And you've heard my story at the beginning of the presentation, but I say I'm a journalist turned innovator. So while I was at the network, I secured 85% of the diverse on air talent for our platform. I tripled our network bookings nationally. And I managed affiliate relations for all 1,300 stations that we actually owned and operated. And so in that process, I won a lot of awards. I hosted a national news feature on SiriusXM. I was a DEI ambassador for the network. I was a speaker on diversity, equity, and inclusion at the Congressional Black Caucus. Hosted Jesse Jackson's Push Economic Summit. I've been a social media ambassador for the United Nations, written for Black Enterprise, and one of the awards that I love the most is my award that I got back in 2016, the Freedom Fighters Award, for my work in journalism and in the community. And so I just share this to say, and that's the entire presentation. I just share that because I like people to know that I lived the experience, and that it just gave me a unique perspective of what the need was and is, and how to create solutions that would assist newsrooms in being better, being more efficient, and ultimately more inclusive.
Great job. Great job. So we have a couple of questions out here in the audience here. Let's see who we're going to bring up first. So let's get it back. Yeah, Ron Moore. He wants to know, how do you monetize your business and expand it?
For sure, great question. So on the B2C side, the expert contributor side, so one of the biggest barriers to entry in media is actually the cost of it to be on air, meaning more oftentimes than not, experts would have to hire a publicist to have the relationship at these networks, right? And the average cost of that is about $2,500 to $5,000 retainer model that people pay to get someone to pitch them, right? And so what we do at EBO to break that barrier to entry in media, because a lot of small businesses don't just have $5,000 a month just laying around for the possibility of getting booked. And so what we do is we create a pay to play, right, kind of model for our subject matter experts. And so every time you accept a booking on the platform, once you accept that, we actually charge a fee for that booking. So instead of you having to pay that retainer, we have cut the cost exponentially for you to actually get booked and seen and heard. And once you accept it, right? So that means you never have to put out money when you don't have it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you when you accept it, that's on the B to C side. On the B2B side, all of our content creators, whether it be a network, a publication, or a podcast platform, you go into a subscription model based upon the amount of bookings that you want to do a month or a year. So we have annual contracts through subscriptions as well.
Okay. Yes. Let's see. Sandy has a question here.
How long have I been active in my own business? So, I was in the industry for a decade. And part of that time, prior to going to the network, I did public relations for a few professional athletes. And so I was always in media relations, getting them booked for different media opportunities before even going to the network. So that's when it started. And then when I left the network, I have a consulting company currently that I've been running for a year and a half, where I consult with clients as well. So, if you're talking industry wise, I have over 15 years experience. As far as running my own business in this particular space, I have collective about 4 to 5 years in the business. Okay, so the next question was, how did you get your first users and how did you get the word out about your platform? Well, I mean, I know a lot of people, right? I come from, I've used my network like we started, right? Your network determines your net worth. And so I really tapped into people that I know, people who I've worked with, people who I've helped to expand their name, their message, and their mission. And so I started there. And I think that's the perfect place for people to start, because you've already vetted the people that you could be your best customers, right? But then you want to start asking them to refer people, because then you want people that don't have that bias towards you, right? Because sometimes they'll just say, oh, this is great because it's you, right? And you're their friend or you've known them forever. But you want some users or use cases that have no affiliation or affinity for you to really get some honest feedback. So then I asked a lot of my people that I knew to actually refer folks. And so the way that I'm getting the word out about the platform, again, is through relationships. It's also through email mailing lists. I'm gifted and blessed with over $40,000. I mean, over 40,000 contacts, right? Because of my years in the industry. So I come from a space where growing a network and having a huge network was a part of what I did, and so I was able to use those relationships, like Lloyd talked about in the beginning, to start to put the word out there. And I also am a part of a female mastermind group that has been extremely helpful to me, called Feedly. And their mission and vision of this is to help women founders get funded. And so I've been a huge participant in all of their activities, from hosting and moderating panels for them, going to their networking events, participating in a lot of their active listening and conversations. And so being able to be a part of those communities and sharing what I'm doing as well has helped me get the word out about the platform. But I have not done any advertising or anything like that.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yes, great question. So, do you allow less known or emerging people to sign up to be members of your company's experts? So, yes. So, there are two pieces to this. So, any and everyone can sign up to be on the platform. We do have a process where and I mentioned it in the presentation, where we vet experts, right? Where we basically verify you to say if you're qualified and ready to go on air. And we give you a scorecard and we give you feedback on what you would need to get ready to go on air. And then we provide you with resources that you can opt into to actually build your media profile, whether it's you need media coaching, maybe you need an electronic press kit, maybe you just need someone to give you some feedback on the layout of your website and how that may be precluding you from actually getting media booking. So absolutely, we want this to be a place where experts can grow and get nurtured and to get on the ground level. I tell people we service local radio and TV, and so that's the best place. It's like going to JV before you get to varsity, right? And getting that experience in your local markets. And we give you a lot of tangible ways that you can grow your voice as a subject matter expert, as long as you have the credentials. Because what we do want to make clear is that this is for subject matter experts, meaning you have a certain amount of experience in your industry and that you actually have done the work.
Yeah, and Sandy is definitely a person that meets that criteria, so she would be a good guest.
Yes, we'd love to have you a part of the platform. Definitely, we would love for you to apply for the platform. Woo, that's a good one. So it says thank you, Vercel. I appreciate that. And yes, so the question is, what stage is your startup and how large is your team and what is the next level? Yes. So I am almost like a one-woman show. Like I had a development team that I worked with initially to build the initial MVP. I've recently just partnered with a venture fund that has become a huge resource to me as far as networks and teams. But the next level for me is getting customers. I'm looking for stations to sign up. I'm looking for groups of stations to get locked into those annual contracts and proving the business use case. So the next level would be getting more annual contracts, and then scaling and doing. I have not done a formal raise. I've bootstrapped everything. And I'm not saying that that's the best way to go, but I've been able to preserve my founder's equity that way. And so my goal is to, after securing a certain amount of contracts, to then do my seed raise, because I think I'm going to go straight into a seed round.
Yeah. So, Crystal, you, basically, I think you were at a good stage because you're at a stage where you're beta testing your product, right?
Yes.
And so, and you're looking for more people to help you do that. But I also think you're at a good stage for entering pitch competitions as
Hmm.
well. And so you can look for pitch competition that target women. You can look for pitch competition that targets um, uh, people of color,
Hmm.
and so you can definitely raise some money that way. And different. If you look at the newsletter that I sent, there are some pitch competitions on there, and
Hmm.
and I don't. I can't remember. I think when we met, they had already closed the application up
Yeah.
for the.
Hmm.
I was trying to think if for the Google Foundation program or whatever. But
Hmm.
there's plenty of other programs that you can potentially get in, and are literally stepping stones, to get to the next stage. But customers like your plan currently planning is the best way to grow your business if you can get those contracts like you mentioned there.
Yes, and I am excited to do some pitch competitions because I do come from a world of performance, right? Being
Yeah.
on air, and so I'm ready for showtime. But I'm also really looking for customers who want to engage and want to grow with us, right? Like they have a mission for, helping to expand the global narrative that is more inclusive overall. And also to get get the real conversations out here that makes the media landscape more colorful, more vibrant, and makes us see a lot of our differences aren't really differences. It's just a little bit of difference of how we were raised, right?
Right, right.
Yep.
Yeah, there was just a couple of weeks ago, there was a deadline for a $250,000 pitch competition with the Harvard Black alumni.
Mm,
You see what I'm saying? That because you really have to kind of get on your radar screen because you could literally raise the money you
mm,
need through those pitch competitions. Well, the lady that founded Blender, that was her strategy, and
mm,
yeah, that's the. And then you definitely want to look for the Google. I think still has a program for women founders.
mm-hmm.
Get in that program, and yeah, so it's just a lot of different opportunities out there.
And I'm so excited that we're on this journey because in the short period of time that I've known you, Lloyd, I've learned so much about these opportunities that do exist, and I'm excited about them. And I'm here for it, right? I understand that as a founder, you wear many hats, but that's like a privilege, right? It's a privilege to be able to explore this world of being a founder. Everybody can't say that at the end of the day.
Hmm. Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, it looks like Ron has a comment. Let's see what he's saying here.
Sure. Yes. Also, I'm glad that you said that, Ron. Thank you so much. Ron says that he wants to share the website with some St. Louis natives. Anyone who's a part of any professional organizations, any associations, whether you're a member of BESLA, the Black Entertainment and Sports Lawyers Association, or the National Association of Public Accountants. So we're looking for subject matter experts, and we would love to partner with those different types of organizations as well. And I'm sure this community here, even communities of veterans, right? Veterans have a lot to say. They have dynamic stories and have some great businesses as well.
Yeah.
And so, even veteran communities. And so, if you are a part of those communities, please connect with me, Crystal at expertbookingsonline.com, Crystal at expertbookingsonline.com, and see how we can align with those. Because one thing that I do know is that being able to partner with associations only makes our product more validated and more valuable in the marketplace.
Yeah, Ron is definitely a connector.
Yes, Ron. I look forward. I'm gonna find you on LinkedIn, Ron.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's see. Looks like Sandy has a question.
Mm. Oh, thank you.
I'm
Thank you. It was a rough day today, Dr. Winborn. And I just know that there are a lot of amazing Black women who have dynamic ideas and they may not know how or where to get started. And I just want to encourage anyone who's watching this broadcast to just do it. You're not going to know everything in the beginning. Lloyd even mentioned it's like a process where he just did it and it kind of happened. And, I think that that's one thing that I would encourage people to know, that if there is a need for you, then there's probably a community need that you can address. And sometimes you got to just get started. And so thank you, Dr. Winborn, for sharing that. I needed to hear that because today was a day where I was like, do I really want to do this?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, there are a lot of great opportunities, out there to take advantage of. But yeah, you just I'll try to just make sure you just glance through the our newsletter and kind of see. But I don't even it's no way I could even keep up with all the opportunities.
Mm.
So you definitely need to. And so that's what. So have you built up your profile on fsuccess.com yet?
No, I have not.
See, so that's a site that has probably over 4 million founders.
Mm.
Yeah, and there's several sites like that. So you build up your profile, and people see who you are, and then they start inviting you to the opportunities they have.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other side of it, all the stuff that you need to kind of move forward. So, like for example, so you said you were hosting your application on AWS.
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And so you remember I told you, like
Mm-hmm.
you get like as you grow your platform, but you can decide when you want to take advantage of. You get like $25,000 worth of credits plus $5,000 worth of support just through the F Success site. But you have to build up your profile.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And and I was just thinking as you were talking, Lloyd, maybe one thing I could host for Startup on the Block, right,
Okay.
is, just going through some of those resources and sharing it with the community, right? Because as
Yeah.
I learn it, I would be more than happy to, do whether it's a pre-record or just
Okay.
sharing, like,
Yeah.
these are some of the
Fantastic.
resources for
We
founders.
would
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah. Look, it'll help me, so why not, right? It'll
Yeah.
help both of us. So I would
Yeah.
love to do that for sure.
Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
that's really what the ecosystem is all about. People joining together to help founders move
Mm-hmm.
forward, and yeah, we're definitely all about that. And so yeah, so I'm all for that, and and I'm always trying to help whoever, but the bottom line is I want people to be prepared for the opportunity.
Mm.
And the challenge that I have right now is I, I for a year and a half, all this money has been out there for Black founders, and
Mhm.
and and so I want to see some come to our local area down here in Northwest Florida, but like if our founders down here don't do their due diligence and
Mm.
prepare to take
Mm.
advantage of some of these opportunities, it's just it's I don't know, it's just disturbing sometimes.
Mm. And it's a unique dance, right, Lloyd?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of the distractions that Black founders have,
Yes.
that that where you have to figure out how you're going to pay your bills and live.
Yes.
You don't
That's
have that
exactly right.
cushion of capital to be free like that. But I do want to encourage people to
Yes.
make the time for your vision, right?
Right. Right.
And that's something that I had to also really say, Crystal, no, you're transitioning to be a founder. You have to make the time to grow as a founder. So allocate a couple of hours of your day to just researching,
Yes.
like you're saying,
Exactly.
pitch competitions, money for Black and brown founders. Because if you don't structure that time into your day, it will escape you and you will
Oh,
miss the opportunities. Hmm.
and that's exactly right. Is if you have an idea, yeah, there's even if you got up an hour earlier and just did
Hmm.
research on your idea, yeah, it's just the help is there. You just have to kind of reach out for it. Well,
Hmm.
yeah, so we're at time, so we definitely enjoyed having you on, Crystal, and sharing your founder's journey and your career, and we really enjoyed hearing about it. And the purpose of that, is to let the audience know founders are everyday people,
Hmm.
and
Yes.
yeah, and you can be a founder, and you don't have to
Mm.
be. In your case, you're a non-technical founder, and so you got help, hired some help to build your MVP, and to kind of move forward from that. So, but yeah, we'll definitely make sure you keep growing and get connected, and to some of these opportunities. Yeah, so I tell you, Ron is a Mr. Networker, and so I was over in Poland, and
Wow.
I met these guys that were working on stuff related to the sewer stuff and these
Hmm.
infrastructure. And I said, well, I said, well, I know a guy back in St. Louis that's spent a whole career working with that kind of infrastructure stuff. And
Mm.
so Ron has been working with them, and they've been making money. And
Wow.
yeah, and
Yeah, that's awesome.
yep, and he sent me a little money through Cash App as
The
well.
Cash App.
It wasn't required, but that was, but it just, I did, I just like to help people move
Mm.
forward with what they're doing, and Ron definitely is a good brother, and we're definitely excited to have him participate in what we're doing. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll keep in touch, Crystal. I'll chat with you sometime next week, and we
Hmm.
can kind of keep moving forward. Any parting words for the audience before we end the broadcast?
Yes, absolutely. One, thank you so much for all that you do, Lloyd. The work that you're doing is critical, and I'm just honored to know you. But my parting words would be, one of my favorite quotes is by James Baldwin, and the quote goes as such. It says, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. And so know that your idea is a solution to a problem that needs to be faced. But if you never go on the journey, nothing will change.
All right, thank you very much, and
Thank you.
we're so happy to have had you on, and hopefully people can take advantage of some of the stuff you shared. All
Thank
right,
you so much, Lloyd. I appreciate it. Have a great one. Talk to you soon.
all right, see you
Bye,
later.
everybody. Okay, thank
Bye.
you.